Well, welcome everyone. My name is Kim Lytle. I'm the Assistant Dean for Research in the College of Education and Human Ecology, and we want to welcome you to this month's Qualtrics Corner. It's all about Survey Flow Part 2, and of course that meant we had a Part 1, and that recording will be made available as well. So thank you for coming today, and Heather, I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself and get started. If there's any questions, just go ahead and put them in the chat box. I'll keep an eye on those and stop Heather when I need to ask her any questions. So thanks again for coming. Let's get started.
Sounds great. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our second Qualtrics Corner webinar of the 2017 fall season. I hope everyone can hear me. My name is Heather Lansky, and I am Manager of Data Quality Reporting for the EHE College Office of Research. I'm also one of the Qualtrics Division Administrators for EHE. Kevin Welsh and Scott Kaleli with the OIT are also our division admins. They primarily do the user accounts, setting you up with your first account when you first get your account, privileges, passwords, that kind of thing. And my role is to assist users with Qualtrics and troubleshooting some of the issues that folks have when they're using it. If you have dual screens and a Qualtrics account, you can go ahead and log in and follow along with me. Otherwise, I will be providing the slides later this afternoon, so you don't have to worry about trying to jot things down. I will send these slides out when we're all done. So as we said, EHE Office of Research does several of these workshops. We do this monthly Qualtrics Corner, but we have some other ones as well that you may be interested in. Our archives of all of those past sessions can be found on our website, and it looks like I need to change that link. Our link website has changed, so I need to fix that. I'll fix that when I send out the slides this afternoon. But we do have an archive there of all of these past sessions. We record them all. There's several other ones that we've done about filling out the PA5 and some just different things related to research, so those may be helpful to you as well. And now let's jump in and start talking about Survey Flow Part 2. Hopefully, I think I sent out the link to Survey Flow Part 1, so hopefully you had a chance to look at that. This is breaking the second half of what Survey Flow has to offer, starting with the randomizer. Randomizer lets you present question blocks, embedded data, or other survey flow elements into your survey in a random fashion. An example of that would be to assign respondents to either a control block of questions or an experimental block. You can send people down. It's really used for sending people down different paths in the survey. In a random sort of way. You can do it with branching if you just need them to send down different branches, but the randomizer really does it in a random fashion. So you add the randomizer just like you do add anything else in the survey flow. You click on the randomizer button and it shows you your options to randomly present which elements. You can have it evenly present the elements. You can set the count. There's a number of different things that you can set there, and then you put in there what all the things that you want it to randomize, and it will take a hold of that. And it will take, and you will export, when you export your data, you have the option of seeing the randomization scheme that was applied. So you'll see which groups of questions participants received, and there's all kinds of different options with randomizer. Another thing you can do is add a table of contents. This is helpful if you have a pretty extensive survey and you've got it broken up into several different blocks, and maybe it doesn't matter what order participants do the blocks in. This just gives them a sense of navigation so they can navigate through the survey in an organized kind of fashion. Every survey respondent has the access to the table of contents that at all times that allows them to jump around to different sections of the survey and kind of track their progress of where they're at. So again, when you're in survey flow, you add a table of contents, and you can give it your header and name, survey navigation, or whatever you want that to be. You can also save your table of contents header to a library. So if you use the same table of contents over and over. You can reuse that in your library just as you do surveys or questions, whatever else you may have in the library. And then you just reorder your blocks in whatever way you want to present the items in your table of contents. You reorder those, and then this is how this looks when you set it up. So from the top level menu, you can say, you're going to add a table of contents on the conclusion page. You can add it to the introduction page. You can set what kind of, once they've completed everything in the table of contents, you can have, just like the end of survey message, you can have a default table of contents that just says, you've completed, or you can construct a custom message that says you completed everything in the table of contents and this is what you need to do next. And there's a couple of different options that you have with your table of contents. You showed in the sidebar, that's the most common thing to do. You can also, and this applies to the top level, all table of contents options. This is for each individual block. So for each individual block, you can force the respondent to finish the block, and you can, I'm not really sure, I think this translatable block label, I think that has to do with translating surveys into different languages. But the main option here is this force respondents to finish the block. So once they start it, they have to finish it before they can move on to a different block. The
Heather,
yeah.
I'm sorry, before
Uh-huh.
you go on, William has a question about the table of contents. You can see
Sure.
that question. It says, does the table of contents conclusion message replace the end of survey message?
No, it does not. They are separate messages.
Okay. So does
That
the
was a good question.
message at the end of one of these individual blocks just say you've completed this block, or?
There's not a message at the end of each block. There's
Oh,
a
okay.
message at the end of the entire table of contents.
Oh, okay. Does that help, William? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you.
So this is how it looks when you're looking at it on both on your screen and on mobile. So it gives you, this is the title that you've given it, whatever you want it to say, and then there are links to each of the individual blocks that you would have folks navigate through to. So that's just a little snapshot of how that table of contents looks. I don't know that it's something you would use very frequently. As I say, I think it's more a feature if you have a huge survey. It's a nice way to break it down. But a lot of times investigators have a particular order that they want people to complete their questions in, and they would rather have more control over the order of that than letting it be free-form table of contents. But I wanted to present it just that it's there as an option, so folks are aware how to do it. Quotas is another thing that you can set up. This is a way to track the number of respondents that match certain criteria and limit how many people can take part in all or part of a survey. You can set it up quotas at the block level, so you have a certain block that you've set a quota against and only certain people can complete that block. That would be helpful for that randomization that we talked about before, if you did a quota and combined with a randomization. So once the randomizer had randomized a certain number of folks into that block, then the quota would shut that block off, and no further people would be sent to that from the randomizer. Once the quota is met, you can either terminate the survey entirely, you can skip a question, skip a block. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do based on what happens when the quota is met. Quotas can be used with the skip logic option that's found in the advanced question options to the left of each question. So you can say you're going to add skip logic, and if the quota is met, then do this, skip to this question. Quotas can be measured either by the question response. So, once 10 people have said yes to this question, then we've got our quota and we're done. It can be set by embedded data. So you set maybe you're looking for a certain demographic, and once and you set the embedded data based on maybe an age criteria. So you've got a group of young adults, you've got a group of teenagers, you've got a group of older adults, and you have quotas against each one of those. And you've set your embedded data based on your age criteria, saying, anybody that's under age 18 is a young person, and once 20 young people have completed, we're going to turn that off. So that's a way that you would use embedded data with a quota. And you can even use quotas within quotas. Qualtrics has all of these layers that can quickly get more and more complex as you add things into them. It's really useful for that scenario where you just want you know what you want, you know how many you want it, or you want an equal number. For example, if you want an equal number of males and females, you can set that up. So the way that you do that is you go into the quotas function, which I think on this previous screen, it's under the tools menu. You go to quotas, and then you get this screen, and there's the add a quota tag there. So you add your quota, and it will show this is a quota that's already been set up. So I've set this quota up to accept 200 males and 200 females, and it's showing me the status of my quota. So right now I have 3 males and I have 1 female in my survey. And then this is what happens when the quota how you set the quota conditions. So this is setting my quota. This is setting the quota conditions. It's the same thing as setting up a trigger. So you're choosing the question, what response, what response triggers it, and then what happens when the quota is met. What happens? So in this case, once we've reached enough males, then we end the current survey. And we say, we've reached all the male respondents that we're going to take for this survey. Thank you for your interest, or whatever you would apply against that. And then the third step is again, when the quota is met, the most common thing to do is end that survey and prevent. The other one is to prevent a new survey session. So once it's, you don't even let people get that far. They say, once they've clicked on the link, if your survey is full, it just says our survey is full, and you don't even let them start. So there's a couple different ways you can have that set up. This is how a custom message would look. So at the end of your survey, you could set up the custom end of survey message. When the quota is met for males, this is what message they would receive, just saying that we've already got it, but we've recorded your contact information, and if for some reason we need more participants, or some of our participants fall out of the study, or whatever happens, we can be back in touch with you. So that's what a custom end of survey message looks like when your quota is met. When you have a quota, this customized end of survey, that's back in your look and feel. And once you have a quota set, this quota met becomes one of your options. So typically it's just custom end of survey message, and you just pick a message from your library. But once you have a quota set against it, then you have these other options having to do with quotas. So once a quota has been met, you have the option too of what happens to people that come in after that quota has been met. So you can say, do not increment the quotas, or flag the response as the quota has been met. So it's one of those difficult things of having to decide whether, do I record this response? Do I not record it? If you leave all of these things unchecked, all of the responses will be recorded. And the only way of knowing who was over quota is if the responses are missing, which is just kind of odd to me. So where you have flag response as quota has been met, even though you flag it that way, I haven't found a way that you could retrieve that. So the best thing to do really is to record all of the responses and mark the ones that are over quota using embedded data. That's the best way that I've found to do it. Otherwise, you can't really tell. I don't know why they have this flag when there's no way to find this terminate flag in the data set. I don't know why they have it in there. So I just do it with embedded data. And that's really all there is on survey flow. I wanted to add this slide, which is one I don't think I have covered before. When you're done designing your survey and you're ready to go live, the next 4 steps are really to add any upfront language that you need to describe, what's going to happen with the survey, what information that the participant's going to have available to them as they're taking it, any kind of instructions that you're going to need. Whether it's individual questions or right at the beginning of the survey. Make sure all of your language is clear there, adding any ending language, what happens next. If it's a enrollment type of thing, let them know that they're going to be contacted. And last and certainly not least, absolutely required in my opinion, is testing. Test your survey. Make sure that it's set up the way that you expect it to be, especially if you've used survey flow and some of these more advanced features. You want to make sure that it's functioning the way that you want it to be. If you're using quotas, if you're using randomization, test it, test it, test it to make sure that things are working the way that you expect. So fill out the test responses, look at the data, make sure it's what you expect to see so you avoid the surprises on the end after you've already been collecting data for a while and you say, wait a minute, this isn't working. One of the ways that I do that when I am testing my surveys is I set up a contact list with all of my own email addresses. I've got my OSU email address, I've got my Gmail in there, I've got some what I call victims. They're usually my family members and some of my friends. But if it's one of the really complicated surveys, I'll have somebody that knows nothing about it. I'll just send it to them and say, hey, take a look at this and see if this makes any sense. In some cases, I've even been known to give them a profile and say, hey, you're a 42-year-old diabetic with dyslexia. Fill this out. And so I'm looking for them to fill it out in a certain way to trigger certain behaviors so I know if that's working or not. And it's not, you'd be surprised what you find out when you do that kind of testing. Things that you look at every day that make sense to you. When my husband looks at it, he says, you're using terms in here that I have no idea what these things mean, because we're just used to the language. We know what it means and we don't even think about it. But when you have somebody's fresh eyes look at it, they really do catch things that you're like, you would never in a million years think would be confusing. So I do that kind of testing. Then once I've done all that, then I go ahead and go live with it. And even then, that doesn't always prevent problems down the line, but it certainly cuts down on a lot of them, especially if you're using these things like randomization and quotas, where it's very dependent on having it set up right from the beginning. So that is all I have. Do we have questions? Anything I can go back over?
Well, I'm using wait time, and it sounds like uh, there aren't any immediate questions. That sounds like a really powerful way to deal with quotas. So is there any accessibility issues that need to be thought of while you're using that functionality, Heather?
There's nothing inherent in the survey flow that you would have to worry about accessibility. Most of the accessibility issues are question types.
All right.
There's sliders, they're the ways that the questions are formatted to the participant, but there's nothing specific in the survey flow itself.
Okay. Well, Heather, thank you so much for that wonderful information, and thank you for all the participants. We will get the slide deck and the recording out to everyone that registered, and we will see you next month. And Heather, what's the topic next month? I don't remember.
I don't either.
Wait a minute, I've got it right here. It is going to be triggers.
Triggers,
okay. So November 6th, be on the lookout for that, and it's the topic will be triggers. All right. Well, thanks,
Wonderful.
everyone.
Thank you. See you next time.